Hey guys, Desolator Magic here, a little bit under the weather, unfortunately, as of like literally an hour ago, so of course I blasted the Zycam pretty hard. But that won't stop me from reading the latest chapter that was just released on October 11th for the Ixalan storyline. This one is entitled The Race Part 1, and I'm just gonna take a wild guess that that race is not white, because this is Wizards. So you got the little merfolk rebellion, then you got the whole thing with the vampires and their ship, and then you got the thing with the pirates and their ships, and they're all showing up at Ixalan at the same time, and then the merfolks use a spell to blast them, I don't know, on like some kind of tidal wave into the rocks or something, and oh, was it Vraska's ship or was it not? Oh my gosh, what happened? Ah! So naturally, the suspense totally killing us. They start off this chapter with, the garrison at Fort Danto had become accustomed to regular attacks, violent storms, and all manner of unpleasantries from the wild country around them, but they could never have known who would stumble into their lofty barricade from the coast. By the way, Fort Danto is a vampire conquistador fort, I guess you'd call it. I was going to say something else, I can't remember the Spanish word for fort. It's probably fort. Oh good, the tribe I'm so invested in and care the most about at this point. Yay! So some scraggly looking dude who I guess is a vampire shows up at the gate, and the guards are like, I don't know if we should let this guy in. He seems kind of off it since he says, I have conquered the waves and death itself. Praise Saint Alenda. Oh wait, they're Spanish. Elenda. So the guards are not vampires, don't know what's going on there, and the guy outside, they said he had been lost to the bloodfast, whatever that is. And he's also not lost, he's still alive. So they're just like dumping a whole bunch of cryptic nonsense that I guess will make sense later in the story, which I hate it when people do that. They always say that it's like such a bad writing tactic to just dump exposition or narration on somebody at the beginning, but this isn't a book. I want to know what the heck is going on. So apparently they fetch the priest, which is of course that one from the card. The heck is her name? Oh, Mavrin Fane. And she's like, oh, let him in, because he said that he arrived on a ship called Her Majesty's Courage, which is apparently, I don't know, noteworthy or something. And so when he asks, hey, are you Mavrin Fane? She, of course, naturally, very logically replies, Saint Alendra was the first. Her sacrifices our survival, her selflessness the model of our success. I took the right 200 years ago, and under the guidance of Saint Alendra the first, we will find the way to immortality without the need for blood. Now, I'm not the most sociable person and not the most proper to talk to, but I would have maybe replied with, yes, my name is Mavrin Fane, that's me. In fact, that distinctly seems to not be an answer that she just gave him. She pretty much just told him history that he already knew. Oh wait, I completely screwed this up and I don't feel like re-recording it. The vampire is Hierophant Mavrin Fane. The priest is somebody else. So it would appear, because Fane has a bag of crushed equipment that's basically just navigational tools from a ship, the priest is like, yeah, were these the navigational tools of your ship? And he replies, I knew we didn't need them. Yeah, but you're kind of starving, and I'm getting the impression you didn't really show up here on time, probably because you crushed all the navigational equipment. And actually, when they asked him what ship he showed up on, he initially answered the Sacrosanct Buoyancy of Inviolable Faith, which is not the name of his ship. He meant that literally. So yeah, that explains the starvation. And by the way, I'm being sarcastic because I'm pretty sure that he's doing it on purpose to something about a vision, and I don't know. I kind of vaguely read the Ixalan cards, whatever. So then Marvin, cartoon character Fane, got one smell of like living humans and was like, oh crap, I'm hungry. Just like climbs up the side of the wooden fort with like just his claws and then like tries to attack one of the humans, but haha, guess what? Well, he started biting madly at the metal covering between the guard's jaw and collarbone. Haha, what's up now? You know, the whole biting in the neck thing, I mean, there's major arteries elsewhere in the body, I'm just saying. So the other human guards were like, yeah, no, and they ran over and just like frickin' Sparta kicked him off the side of the fort, which, I mean, I wish I could see an animation of that. That would be some funny crap. The real question is, can he turn into a bat? Because I don't think that vampires can do that in Magic the Gathering. I've never seen it. So then, of course, the priest just like tackles him, pins him to the ground, and is like, yeah, good job with your whole fasting thing, but you're gonna have to end it if you want to stay in Fort Adanto because you're causing some problems. So apparently these vampires have a policy to not like drink the blood of anybody unless they're a criminal or sinner, as they put it. And some guy killed his friend in a fight over a game of cards. So there you go. So they're like, yeah, you can basically drain all of his blood later. Well, it turns out the vampires are just basically a nutcase cult because, well, here comes the expedition dump that I was talking about, and honestly, it pretty much is bad writing. I take back what I said before. So Saint Alendra was the first vampire, and they all, worship her because, like, oh my gosh, she's so great. I get the impression she's not around anymore, but anyway, she was born mortal, and then like some guy killed all the people at the thing that was guarding the thing, the sun thing, whatever. And she got away, and then she's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna find the sun thing and bring it back to the temple. His telling of this might have been a little bit more enthusiastic and poetic. So then she turned to dark magic. Oh, wow, she's such a genius and a visionary. Literally, he said that word for word. And she took on the burden of immortality until she could retrieve the immortal sun. I'm just going to take a while because she's now also allergic to it because, vampires, sun. So then she searched and searched and searched for like centuries, hello, and then she returned to Vampireville, aka the continent of Torazon, aka the continent of Hawaii. That meme is never going to get old. Never. It must also be a vampire. So she came back and she taught all the nobles the same, I'm going to turn myself into a vampire spell, I guess. And, they could also take up sacrifice and join her in research. Genius, visionary, she's so blessed, blah, blah, blah. No, she's an idiot. So Mavrin ends up ripping the door clear off the jail cell after telling him the story that he probably already knew. And, then he just, like, drinks his blood without even waiting for the evening, whatever, ceremony, whatever. Then he just apologizes to the priest, and she's like, that's cool. So Mavrin says, yeah, we kind of ran ashore when the navigational instruments were destroyed. I'm getting the impression that he did it. Anyway, but he's like, I intend to continue the mission, though. So, whatever. But then he's like, all I really need is a change of clothes, a staff, and no need for a compass. So I don't know. There was some thing that said something about, it was one of the earlier chapters. They said that the vampires have a seer that can just like sense where Oraska is. So it's probably him. He like totally drove himself loony by not drinking any blood, and now he, I don't know, knows where it is or something. Whatever. All right, so we're done with that, Loon. Next up, it goes to Vona, the most powerful card in the entire Ixalan set by far. So Vona's full name is Vona of, is it Iedo or Lado? Well, it would be capitalized, so it must be Iedo, Color of Sinners, Butcher of Magan. So apparently Vona has just had centuries in a row of just non-stop warfare, which makes sense why her card is absolutely insane. And she unified with military force the entire continent and was like, hey, let's all get together and join the Church of the Crown, as they call it. Oh, and then it says, get this. And now on the deck of her ship, she eagerly approached the Brazen Coalition ship on the horizon. Oh, we already know that's going to go well. So a while back, the Queen had announced, by the way, Queen's name is Meralda, that she was going to put together like a whole, ship, fleet, whatever, to go in search of Saint Alenda. Yeah, like actual still alive Saint Alenda. Just, I guess they don't know where she is. Hey, here's a thought. Go after the Eternal Sun or whatever. I keep forgetting what they call that thing. The super duper mega ultra nuclear powered fusion flashlight. Let's go with that. So Vona volunteered, and here she is on a big old schmancy pantsy ship. So they see a storm brewing, which is weird because I could have sworn that chapter 2, I was going to say 1, but duh. Chapter 2 said that they summon artificial storms around their ships to block out the sunlight. I swear I read that. Anyway, no, they're like, yeah, that must be merfolk on the shore. They're summoning a violent storm. That's concerning. And Vona's like, no, pirate ship, let's attack them. Well, then the next part says Vona watched as her priest lifted his staff into the air, conjuring a churning black smoke that engulfed their ship. Told ya. And the brilliant tactician that Vona is, they notice, hey, those are some big waves. So the crew is just like scrambling, trying to like turn the boat into the wind, but they think it might actually legitimately like flip the ship over, and this ship is huge. So then from the sound of it, they accidentally just basically crashed the ship into an outcropping of rocks that are along the shore. Whoops. And since Vona was busy playing Titanic on the front of the ship, she just falls clear off into the water because, sudden stop. So the whole ship gets completely wrecked instantly, so I guess the merfolk, instead of trying to push the ship away, which is word for word what they said happened in a former chapter, they were pulling the ship in to crash it onto some kind of rocks or reef or something. I don't know. In the last chapter, it was a coral reef. They just keep changing this. It's like, come on, it's kind of important, but I guess kind of not. So then Vona's like, oh, cool, they crashed too. And, is looking over at Vraska's ship, and she's like, cool, so the stranger with the compass, which, I don't know, I guess she can see her now, or I don't know. That's the captain. So I guess she's looking for the compass because she knows that she has it, which is weird because how would she know that? Somehow she also, it says, knew that Vraska was in the jungle already. Can't imagine how. And she's like, yeah, I'm going to try to ambush her. I'm sure that'll go well. So then she's like, you know what? I don't even need to save the rest of my crew because they're still like, oh my God, help me. I can't swim or whatever, which seems a little bit far-fetched. She's just like, I'm going to the jungle. I'm going to get me that compass and I'm going to find the immortal sun. So let's go. So the next heading is Jace. Hey, we're back in Jace land. That's my favorite land, by the way. So Jace was like, okay, so somebody used magic to start that storm, because they already, jumped overboard and swam to shore. And she's like, yeah, there was an elementalist on shore. I saw him. Can't see him there anymore, though. So they see the big old pirate mobile that crashed on the rocks, but one of its smaller vessels, some little dinghy that was, I guess, hanging off the side, that was intact. So they're like, let's go steal it and take it up the river to the central part of the continent, and I don't know, that doesn't really make sense. She didn't really consult the compass. I guess she just magically knows where to go because story. So this paragraph changes some things because continuity isn't really Wizards of the Coast thing. Well, except for continuously making mistakes in the design of the game. But basically the dinghy that was, quote, floating at a cockeyed angle in the shallows near a broad delta is now beached, which is weird because it's been about 5 seconds. Also, neither of the ships actually crashed into the rocks. They crashed into each other now, apparently. Alright. So some random vampire, not really sure who it is, comes running at Jace while he's sitting on the beach. And he kind of hears them coming, in his mind because of their mind. And they're, saying some phrase over and over and over in their head because, they're a bunch of obsessed cult nutcases. So then he instinctively basically slowed down time to almost a standstill to give himself time to think, which probably would have helped against pretty much everything in Amonkhet. Don't you love it when an author can't keep somebody's superpowers down to a very distinct, consistent point? So he reaches out and sees the vampire's mind, which is just a bunch of super fragile glass, basically. And he's like, oh yeah, I kind of sense the immensity of my own power, so I'm just gonna do this one tiny little change, and he makes him go to sleep. So yeah, the vampire just mid-run just narcolepsies out, faceplant right into the beach. So then Vraska comes running up out of nowhere, and she says, Jace, close your eyes. And he's like, all right. And boom, she turns the vampire into a awesome vampire beach ornament. Oh, wait, no, apparently that was a different vampire that she targeted. Jesus, this is bad writing. So they got one sleeping vampire and one turned to stone right next to each other. I don't know where the second one came from. It didn't say vampires, plural. I don't know and I don't care. Okay, just so you can follow what a complete and utter dumpster fire this is, let's just read this verbatim. See if it makes sense to you, because maybe it's because I have some kind of flu or something, but this is just utter nonsense to me, just complete and utter chaos. The surviving crew of the belligerent was shaking off the crash and bracing for a fight. Several vampires were swimming ashore with ease despite the obvious weight of their armor. Their gifts were good for more than just feasting, it seemed. Breeches, which you might remember is some obnoxious goblin guy or whatever, easily ran across the sand toward Vraska, his tail streaming behind him as he ran. We fight, you go, he yelled, and Vraska knelt down to his level. We go as a crew, she said tersely. Breeches shook his head. We fight dusk, you find sun, meet up later. How will you find us, Vraska asked, and Breeches pointed at Jace. Follow fancy illusion. So then he basically just suggests that whenever they get off the boat upriver, they just have Jace make some giant, really tall illusion that they can see. And then he says he'll have Malcolm check high up every hour to look for them. And then they'll just go to it. Okay, so vampires that are super power fast are going to fight a bunch of pirates that just got in a giant, we'll just say car crash. Well, I mean, it was a boat crash, but whatever. Different insurance companies. They're going to fight a bunch of vampires when they're already mad about losing, who the hell did they say died? Edgar? I don't remember who that is. Oh, I think it was the cook, the orc cook. I don't know, whatever. So they're going to take the two most powerful people, the one who can turn vampires to stone instantly and the one that can make powerful illusions and crush people's minds. Yeah, you guys go and look for the stupid thing that we've got all the time in the world to go look for, but we'll stay here and fight with, what, your fists? I mean, they didn't all have time to grab a sword before they got, thrown overboard. That seems like the dumbest tactical decision ever. I do not understand why anybody would go with this. And Vraska's like, all right. So they basically start chasing down a vampire because they see bloody footprints. And, that makes perfect sense because they literally just left to go look for Eraska, I guess, without their crew, which, like I said, makes a ton of sense. And so Jace makes them invisible because Vraska's like, yeah, we need some camo. Like, seriously, she actually says that. You guys keep thinking I'm throwing in jokes. I'm basically reading this verbatim. So then Vraska and him splashed through the shallow water of the estuary and climbed into the boat, which is now simultaneously floating in the shallows, beached on the beach, and already in the river. Attention, crappy author of this chapter. Please make up your damn mind where the boat is. Also, this dinghy, also known as basically a rowboat, has sails because it says Vraska busied herself with setting the sails. This boat is magic, you guys. It can change size and location at will. So randomly, Vraska just blurts out, we're not from here. And he's like, yeah, you said we're from Ravnica. And then she's like, no, that's on a different plane. And he's like, what's a plane? So then she's like, yeah, watch this. And she basically tries to planeswalk, which means she just disappears completely. And Jace is like, whoa, that's neat. And then, actually, brilliant authorship here, because it says he heard a sudden thud and spun around. Vraska had reappeared on the other end of the boat, the same spot she had left the boat from had it not been traveling upstream. And that's the thing. In sci-fi movies how people like time travel and they're like, oh, let's go back a month. Well, if you go back a month, the Earth would be in a completely different position around the sun. So you would just time travel into empty space. So it would also have to be like a space traveler, not just a time traveling machine. And then how would you calculate it? Because you'd have to be like, an inch above the ground or something. And just, it's not going to happen. I mean, I think the Earth is traveling at like 27,000 miles an hour or something. But they got that right on a smaller scale with the boat. So good for them. Too bad they can't figure out what size the boat is or where it is. So then she drops a big old surprise on him. She's like, yeah, usually when we do that, then we end up in a different plane of existence. And we're planeswalkers. He's like, oh, that's neat. So it turns out Vraska doesn't know really anything about this because basically I thought Nicol Bolas was like, no, you ain't planeswalking out of here until your mission's done. But no, she's just like, I believe that Eraska doesn't just contain the immortal sun. It also contains the enchantment that keeps us here. I was told to perform a spell to contact another plane when we found the immortal sun, which we already knew about that. And after we do that, I think we'll be able to leave. Guess what? They explained very thoroughly how this works. She's just gonna basically yank on an imaginary string between planes and not able to send a message, and it'll just tell somebody to planeswalk in and grab it. And then somehow planeswalk out, so I don't know about that, but they never said anything about Vraska being able to leave, and Nicol Bolas trapping her on that plane kind of makes sense. But then, like I said, how would his planeswalker person be able to planeswalk out? I don't know, maybe he had something to do with it, maybe he didn't, I have no idea. And then why is it the Azorius sign? I don't get it. And, Jace explains how the compass works, he thinks, and they're like, oh, that's neat. And Vraska says, okay, the barrier must rely on the same magic that we use to planeswalk. That's why the compass points there. You figured it out. Yes, I did, Vraska. You're correct. Except she was talking to Jace. If you recall, I figured that out last chapter. So then Jace, he's using his Jace radar, which extends out about a mile. And he doesn't really sense anything except for on the very edge. So he really strains to see what's going on at the very rim of his perception. And Vraska says, oh, do you sense anyone? And he says, one human, one vampire, a merfolk, and a minotaur. And Vraska says, a minotaur? And that's the end of the chapter. And by the way, she should know who he is. He's the pirate, crew leader, captain, whatever guy. And so the next section is titled Huatli, because she's back. Oh god, I love it when 4 separate storylines that we had to just drudge through all come together. What creative, unique, never before seen writing. Wow. I honestly don't even remember what her thing was, how she is intending to find the Golden City. I don't know, something about a guide, I guess. Whatever. It says she's basically following the merfolk, so let's go with that. So apparently Huatli saw the boat crash and saw Vraska, and she's like, wow, she's weird looking. Never seen anybody quite like her. But she's like, yeah, I mean, I want to attack everybody who survived because, invaders, but I'm just not going to bother. Now, she does, though, send a Teyua or someone like that, some person, back to the city to summon their forces to deter the survivors. So this is going to be a hell of a battle on the beach. So then she comes across Tishana, actually, who, if you recall, got knocked out by a sucker punch from that other jerk. And so she's like, oh, cool. I'll just ask her where Araska is. That'll go well. How do I, convince the Sun Empire's oldest enemy to help me? And then it goes on to say, I'll find a way. That is logic and planning at its finest right there. So Tishana's all like, oh, hi, I'm Tishana. Now get out of my way. I gotta go chase some merfolk that turned on us. And she says, Ixalan is in peril. And then, let's see, let's skip ahead here. Oh, then Huatli says, why is Ixalan in peril? And Tishana says, a river herald has betrayed my cause and is traveling there now. Wait a minute. There would be a pronoun referring to a location. So both of the former 2 sentences, instead of saying Ixalan, should have said Orazka, because the river herald is not on his way to Ixalan. That's the name of the continent. Boy, this writer can't even keep the name straight. This is pathetic. So then Huatli implies that what she's saying isn't clear, which, I mean, it's not that unclear, to be perfectly honest. So she just blurts out, I want to go to Araska, but I need a guide. And so Tishana replies, what? Seriously, that is exactly what she says. So then she's like, no, it's cool. It's cool because I saw it. Remember, Huatli just found out that she's a planeswalker, except, well, not really, obviously, but she is. And she tried to planeswalk away, temporarily got just one little glimpse of, we'll just say the golden city of Kaladesh. And then she became convinced that that was Araska. And so she's like, no, it's cool, though. I wielded a strange magic and saw a golden city. And then Tishana replies, you saw a golden city? And she's like, yeah. And then Tishana says, not the golden city? And Huatli's like, oh, no. It was definitely Araska. I'm like 98% sure that it was Araska. And then Tishana's like, okay, so you just need to, quote, go there. Not, claim it for the name of your empire or nothing. You're just going to go there. You're just going to visit it because you just love protecting it as much as I do. So then Huatli gives the whole, oh, it's a vision and it's important and something made me see it. So, like, we're not enemies and, all the other crap that's in, like, every movie. And then Tishana's like, yeah, I actually sensed you, like, days ago in the jungle or whatever. I forgot, like, Tishana can talk to the trees and water and all that other hipster garbage. So then Tishana reveals that what do they call it? The break in the heartbeat of the world or whatever was somebody trying to planeswalk out. And she sensed Huatli and Jace, and then, like, I don't know, like, basically every time in the story somebody planeswalked, Tishana felt it because, well, as she puts it, I know only that the surface of our world is impassable from underneath. Some can fall in, but once submerged cannot leap out, which is a very poetic way of saying, yeah, there's an anti-planeswalking spell, but it only works one way. So then Tishana's like, well, you know what? If you saw a city when you skimmed the edges of our world, then I believe you, which is very surprising. I didn't think she would buy that. Although, well, I mean, she basically sensed people trying to escape their planes. I mean, it kind of makes sense, I guess. So then Tishana's like, yeah, okay, let's go to Orazka. Just like that easy. After, like, her own merfolk people were like, we voted 8-2 or whatever to go use the weapons at Orazka or whatever. And Tishana's like, nope, can't do it. Not going to tell you where it is. And then some random lady on a dinosaur shows up and's like, I'm a planeswalker. And then they're like, all right, let's go to freaking Orazka. So the question is she still mistaken? And she basically, well, it said word for word that she planeswalked to Kaladesh, saw the golden spires of Kaladesh and was like, oh, gold colored buildings, and thought it was Orazca. But the story seemed to imply that she was incorrect. So maybe Orazca was built by like Kaladesh technology or in the same kind of architecture or something. That'd be kind of neat. But I will tell you one thing for sure. If the merfolk start being able to use energy in the actual game, I am going to burn every last card that I own and switch to Pokemon. So then Tishana summons like basically the golf cart version of a forest elemental, I guess. It's like this big old like walking thing with like a seed, and then she just like jumps in it. Very strange. But also totally cool. I assume when she jumped in it said, catch a ride. That's a Borderlands 2 reference. So then they spot the vampire running into the forest because apparently these have to tie together repeatedly. Why not? Whatever. I hate simultaneous storylines from multiple perspectives. It's the laziest, stupidest, just dumb way to stretch out a story and make it just obnoxious and unfollowable, especially when they can't even get the damn details right. So they're all just like headed to Orazca and they're like, oh, I'm sure the vampire is going there too, because that's logically what you would think when nobody knows how to get there. Oh, and they cancel Teyua's trip by giving her some kind of whistle command, and then she's just like, or he, or whoever the hell it is, they're just like, oh, cool, we're going to follow the vampire instead of, going to whatever the heck Ville and getting a full army. No, this is way more important. Hey, remember how merfolk use blue and green mana? Yeah, Tishana immediately stops in the middle of the river and says, somebody's casting an illusion there on the water. Probably the one that's cloaking the ship, by the way. And so that's like a beacon to blue players right there. Or, blue planeswalkers and wizards and creatures and merfolk. And then they're all confused because they're like, okay, pirates don't know how to do that. That's way past their ability. This is weird. I wonder who did that. So as they're racing through the jungle to follow whoever casts that illusion, I guess, at that point, they're kind of ADD. They keep focusing on all different things. I think they were also following the vampire before, but then they're like, ooh, shiny illusion. Let's go somewhere else. I've got an idea. Instead of following people, go straight to Orazca. Tishana knows where it is. These people are so dumb. And then there's a little writing tactic known as hanging a lantern on it. See if you can catch what I mean. To her knowledge, no river herald had ever willingly worked with the Sun Empire warrior. Tishana's assistance felt extraordinarily strange. So anyway, this whole time Huatli has been super sick of all these metaphors and talking in circles. She even compared them to like the shaman and the wise people back in her home city mixed with like the town crazy person, basically. I should have read that part. It was actually really funny. So then Tishana starts saying the essential mists of morning, and then Huatli's like, please clarify what mists. And then she immediately replies, the location of Orazca is a secret even to us. And Huatli's like, okay, could have said that instead of all this metaphor crap. See, even she's sick of like poetry and all that, she's the warrior poet and she's like, this is dumb. Just if you got something to say it, which is why I don't like musicals. So then Huatli replies, okay, so you don't know where it is at all. And the merfolk lady, Tishana, glares back and says, oh, we know its general location. By the way, those are two exact quotes. You guys think I'm playing this up? No, they said that. This is basically a sitcom and I love it. So then Huatli's like, okay, is it like beyond Sun Empire territory or like where? And Tishana's like, okay, so it's over the mountain range that separates Pachatupa and Quetzalcoatl, whatever. Honestly, nobody on Earth knows how to pronounce Aztec. Look it up. That is a fact. And then it says, okay, across the lake after that. And then she's like, okay, so is that like north or south of Lost Vale? And then Tishana's like, south. Then Huatli goes, but that's all you know. And she's like, mm-hmm. So then Huatli nodded, and it says, well, she thought to herself, we're going to need that compass. I guess she already knew the topography of the area around Pachatupa, which is the Sun Empire's like main city place. And like somewhere around that lake or the Lost Vale or whatever must be a really big area, because she's just like, yeah, we're going to need that compass. Either that or they're going to spend the whole time looking. But see, they only really have to find Vraska, who has the compass, and she'll be in that area. So, should be interesting when they all meet up. It'll be even more interesting in Rivals of Ixalan because the whole like motto or whatever of the set is defend the city. So somebody gets there, controls it, and then tries to defend it against the rest. And I have a feeling it'll be Vraska and Jace who find it first because they literally have the compass. Oh, also that vampire lady, guaranteed I will eat my hat that I don't own because who the hell has a hat these days? But I will find one and eat it if that lady, the saint vampire lady, doesn't magically show up in the next set. Probably as a mythic. Was it Elendra or Elena or Elaine from Seinfeld or whatever? I don't know. Oh, and I bet Kumena will probably be on a card too, because why not? Kind of fun getting little like, story spoilers almost, or just parts of the story where you're like, well, that's not on a card yet, but it should be. Or, oh, that's foreshadowing into the next set. Or, okay, we already know this is going to happen. In fact, there's probably going to be a mythic land card called Orazka. Like, why wouldn't there be? Either that or a hyper-powerful legendary artifact mythic that's, just called the Eternal Sun or whatever it's called. So anyway, that's the end of this chapter. I think this was part 6, but the website is such a freaking potato that I can't tell. Hold on, I think this... No, that's not it. You gotta click again. Is this part 5? Okay, 6. Well, this is interesting. There's only 7 parts to the story. So the next chapter, which I'm going to take a wild guess is going to be called The Race Part 2, is coming out soon, as they put it. It literally just says coming soon. And based on the artwork, which they usually put up as like a partial spoiler, it's inside some kind of weird like Grand Canyon looking place. And I don't know, they just show Jason Vraska's ship like sailing into the area. So that's kind of cool. Can't wait to see what happens. That'll be the final story. And it'll probably have some cliffhangers that we all want to read Rivals, which I already do. So hey, what do you think of the storyline so far? Feel free to speculate because that's always really, really fun. And I will see you guys next video.